Hello, please come join. Hello, come join. Been waiting for it to really have the camera rolling. Please come join. I don't know. I know I'm live, but I can't tell if anybody's here. It doesn't look like anyone's right there. Can you see me? Don't worry. I'm everything's all good. Please feel free to come and join. I wanted to give you a moment to come in here, but as far as I can tell, I still am unable to see if anybody can see me, but I know they can because, even with the video that I did not post as public, there were still like 3 people. I mean, administrators, I guess, that could see me. Maybe they're like worried. They're scared now. I've scared them. Hmm. Well, you know, when I was, writing things that I wanted to say, and even right now, I would start out what I was going to say like a prayer, like, Dear Lord, or Dear God, and then just tell him how I was feeling and ask him, what I could say into that would make some sort of a difference, if any at all, right? And it's been really difficult for me because, as some of you might know, I've been under this, wow, this unbelievable emotional and spiritual, and even in many ways very physical 3D attack on my spirit, the person I am, what my finances, not being able to get even a dime of my own money that I've made and earned to myself. So many things have happened and so many lies have been told. And when you are, oh my gosh, when you are literally told by a doctor, I mean, I don't care what anybody wants to say, when someone tells you, a doctor tells you that aren't going to live, and you kind of, it changes you. When somebody gives you a cancer diagnosis, that's even if you're only stage 1, it really changes you. It freaks you out, you know, it really does. And you just, as best you can, you try to acclimate to the idea that you're going to pass away, even though everybody is, and you can kind of like, well, you shouldn't feel sorry for yourself or give you excuses. You really change because you realize your own mortality. It changes everything, and you can go and pretend like it doesn't, and but it does. So when someone is vulnerable, it immediately would make you vulnerable. Being hurt in any way would make a person vulnerable. To have, to be in a car accident, to trip and fall and crush your shoulder. If you ever had COVID and you wound up in the hospital, you know, but none of those things, oh man, none of those things could ever compare to having people that you loved and cared for not care if you die. In fact, not only did they not care, if I died. No, they were upset because I lived. I outlived my diagnosis. And these are people like her family. They didn't want me to live because they were in the process of, they'd been stealing. And they knew that my being alive was going to be a problem. And so, what? They got a group of people to say that I lied about my diagnosis? You wouldn't believe how far they went. You wouldn't believe it. And it isn't like, you know, it's there's forgiveness, as far as, people are weak, blah blah blah. We can come up with excuses why, and Jesus told us, to forgive everyone. But there's a point where you have to be smarter, going forward. You've got to realize, if you've got people in your life that would do as much as was done to me, and they would just keep going and going and going. And that the people that, created a documentary and a whole setup. They cried at my pretend funeral. What happened to the bones, and yeah, it's just, I mean, you can even go to a cemetery in Idaho Falls and look at my parents' gravesite, and they're going to have, Verta Vale Richardson on the tombstone. It's like kind of be a little hard to erase me because, I mean, it is really, I don't know what to say. It's almost like, and then for other reasons, okay, for other reasons, in doing research, and when you've got people that have lied to you and lied to you so much about who you are, your family, stealing everything from you, trying to tell other people who you are as a person, it's very difficult to know who's telling the truth and who isn't. I mean, this whole thing, okay, I mean, and hear me out here, because we know that when the presidency was coming on board, about the campaign being about, the Christian faith and wanting to have Christian nationalism, and everything was about that. So this whole campaign was that the spiritualists are attacking, or the religious people are attacking the tarot readers, or the spiritualists. That's what this really has been about the whole time. And they get so mad because I listen to spiritualists too, because, I might not read tarot, but, I align with truth tellers. I don't want, sometimes faith isn't enough, especially when it comes to criminal behavior. And especially when you go into a courtroom, they're not going to go in there having a feeling, or they're not going to go with circumstantial evidence. They're going to want facts. And so that would be the difference between religious, feeling, oh, well, the spirit told me this was true, and then submit it to a court or a judge and have that mean a damn thing, because it doesn't. You can't go in there with religious preference and saying that the Lord told me this was true and that this is what I had to do. It's people like that really make me step back from religion. And I have to be honest with you, it's such a turnoff. And I absolutely cannot align with that. And so, because I realize that this whole campaign has been about really between the spiritualists, okay, well, the religious, let's call the religious the Republicans, and the spiritualists are the Democrats. Because basically that's what it is. And then we're going to talk about the Eastern Stars, which, are accumulation of both, right? They're all in the same group. And they don't want us to know that all groups are within this 33rd degree Mason or internal, or Eastern Star thing. So we don't even know that it's contrived together. And then I have to try to determine whether the Democrats are right or the religion is right, compared to the spiritualists, the Democrats are right. And then you've got to choose. It's like, no, I choose the truth. Whoever is willing to tell the truth. And it's not like, I have an immense amount of faith. And I can tell you why. And I will tell you why, one of the reasons. But right now, and it's really hard because I really, really have had a powerful relationship with the Savior, Jesus Christ. I mean, I resonate. I mean, I don't go around saying praise the Lord or anything like that. That seems really off to me. I mean, I don't have to wear it on my sleeve, maybe, and they're saying that I should. If I love the Lord, I'm gonna wear it on my sleeve. But to me, that is still cultish. To me, that is still like, I mean, I don't mind talking about Jesus Christ. I don't have anything to prove. And he knows that. I'm not an evangelist. That isn't my calling. And they want to say, well, that's our calling because God's come in here and saved you and you need to respect him by, by doing what we say. But see, that's just it. Everybody knows that Jesus Christ gave us our free agency to choose our lives and who we're going to be. And so just because somebody's coming in to save me that are on the Christian side, you can't, strong arm me into joining a campaign that was forced upon me. You forced it upon me. And it's a real turnoff. Relationships are being forced upon me. And that is a real turn off. No, I'm not going to hook up with a stranger. Of course not. That, especially now, I mean, that'd be like Looney Tunes for me to even go there. But I wanted you to know that I personally know that God lives. I know he does. He does. He does. And he made me a singer. Yes, I do have really powerful intuitive gifts. I do. I'm not denying it. I've got some other ones too that I haven't really even talked about. Some of them that even kind of surprised me. But I will tell you that God does live. He lives because, we know because, like I said before, because the sun rises and sets, because, because we can give birth and we love our children, I mean, there must be a supreme being because, most parents love their kids, they realize that it's a divine purpose. Life must have some divine purpose. I completely and totally align with that. So I wanted to keep my notes. I believe personally, and I'm sure you've got stories of your own, I believe in miracles, in big, profound miracles, where there's absolutely no explanation for it. One year, when my first son was born, he was only 5 months old. And I had gone to Idaho Falls for Thanksgiving, which that year turned out to be on my birthday. And when I left, I had my son in his car seat, and I was going from Idaho Falls back to Portland. And I was in the pass, like, in La Grande, and it was super dark, and there was black ice, and it was on the radio, there's black ice. It was super slick, man. It was really scary. Okay, so I am going up this hill and I'm singing hymns. I was singing hymns at the top of my lungs. I was just singing hymns and I was just, really feeling good. But as I went over the top of the hill, I hit a patch of ice and I slid to the opposite side of the freeway, hit a bumper rail, and then bounced back head on in the wrong lane, only to have a 16-wheeler clip me head on and send me spinning the other direction. And then I ended up back on the other side of still the other side of the freeway, still in the wrong lane. And I, before I could even imagine what to even do, I was told, and I'm getting chills, God told me, get that baby and get away from the car. Get your baby out of the car seat and get away from that car. So I did. I got my little boy, and I was scared too because the ground was really slick. But I did. I got him out of his car seat, and I walked away from the truck, and sure enough, there was other cars coming, and I was out there trying to flag them down so they wouldn't hit my car that was still sticking out in that lane, because then it could have been a bigger pileup, right? And so I got my baby in my arms, and I'm just like, trying to let people know, and so the vehicle was totaled. And long story short, the trucker that hit me got off on the exit and turned around and he came back. Thank God. That's a miracle too, right? That he actually came back, but he did. And so we got the vehicle off the road, and my son and I, we rode in his truck to the next town, to La Grande, and I got a hotel, right, with my little boy, with my baby. And I just remember I could feel it. I could feel like hosts of angels completely surrounding me. I mean, I was so overwhelmed with the fact that me and my son didn't have a scratch. And we were hit head on, by this truck, and it totaled the car. But my baby and I, we were fine. And but even then, just the feeling of being so quickened. I mean, so spiritually quickened to the point that I could hardly go to sleep. I couldn't. And that feeling, it just went with me because I realized that the veil was, somebody busted through. They absolutely told me to get my baby and get away from that car. And instinctively, I'm out there on the freeway trying to stop people so they don't run into my vehicle. And I had no idea if that trucker would ever come back, but he did. Oh my goodness. And get me and the baby and took us to that hotel room. Miracle. I mean, and this is just one of so many, and you've probably had them too, where and you've heard that voice, and sometimes it is a still small voice. It is. Sometimes it is a still small voice, but sometimes it's your angels. It could be people that have died before. And for me, in that way, the veil has been thin, I know there's people want to argue that with me, but you can't because the veil is thin for me. I'm not one of these woo spiritualists. I mean, there's some of them out there that, they live on the fringe that I don't relate to because that's not who I am. I'm not faking it. What the gifts that I have, I'm not faking it. I don't have to wear beads and bandanas or, smoke marijuana, even though, one time, I had to sometimes because I was in pain from my spine. Like me or not, I'm not perfect. I never claimed to be perfect, ever. I don't even want to be. And God loves me anyway. I'm not out there wanting to hurt and harm anybody. I would never. And part of my collapse in faith was watching people around me completely disregard their own belief systems. You know, people that were, committing crime in the name of God and feeling like that was okay to come after an innocent person, even if I wasn't innocent, still not having any right to come after an innocent person so they could steal from them. Oh, well, she's going to die. She'll never know. What they're doing, though, is defamation of character. Just because we die physically, our memory and our spirit goes on. I owe it to my children to fight like hell. There's no way. No, no, no. I'm going to let these people say anything like that about me that's not true. No way. Because I know who I am, and I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of myself. Now, I haven't always made the perfect decisions. None of us have. But it seems like people just are so ready especially if they're jealous of you, she'll look for every single fault. Well, you're just too chubby. Well, you're just too this, and you're just too that. You're too old. Well, I remember way back when you lied, or I remember way back when you did this. And they're never 1 minute, never once turning around and taking a really good hard look at themselves. So, when you see people that say that they believe in God, they surely, I'm sure they do. But do they when it really counts, especially in a courtroom? There comes a time where, your feet have to be held to the fire. You say you believe it, but, let's see what you've done. Are you just out there trying to attack tarot readers and doing them harm to prove your faith is true? Is that what you're doing? Throwing these spiritualists, some of them are just like carrying on how their parents taught them. And yes, some of them have done witchcraft and, voodoo and all of that, right? But not all of them. Some of them really do investigate things. And I have myself, I know who to weed out. I knew who to kind of listen to. I know if they're telling most of the truth. I can tell when they have a personal preference of an outcome. And so, I can kind of just decide between what the facts are and what their preferences are in a situation. Maybe they have compassion towards somebody, but they're not the one that was actually attacked. So they might feel sorry for somebody that I definitely can't afford to feel sorry for, because you have no idea. They were coming after my life. I can't just, smooth that over because they wanted to steal everything and my reputation. Even if you took all the money in the world just to slander somebody, what if I had died? What about my kids? I owe it to myself never to let these people slander my name. Mm-mm. No way. And and believe me, while my skills are sharpened, I figured out, oh my goodness, so much before you guys ever came on board to teach me a thing. I already knew what was going on around me. Now there were some finer details and some people that weren't involved, that I have been come privy to along the way. And so we worked it as a team too to bring this out in the open. But I'll tell you what, the veil is very thin for me. It has been since I was a child. It was. And somebody is invading my dreams. And that's another thing too. It is possible to plant things which they have inside my brain. There's something to that. It can be done. And you might not have even realized that that could be done. It's a different sort of thing. This lucid dreaming. I've been doing that for a really long time before you guys came along. And so there's things that we don't yet quite understand that hopefully, we can solve those mysteries to what those mean. I mean, I was even looking for people that could help me solve the dream problem before people were invading my dreams on purpose. I was like trying to resolve that because even in childhood, I had some really profound dreams that I was, awake and participating in. And some of those that really freaked me out. And so we have no idea. We're kind of just getting to where maybe we can understand how human beings can actually do that. So, but again, I'm not a fringe spiritualist. I don't I mean, I've learned over this time, what certain cards mean, but still I don't really read tarot because I would rather get the downloads. If somebody says a little bit, I'm going to pick up the rest of it. I kind of like how that's been working, like I'll get a set of different scenarios and then I've got to pick the one that's right. And so I kind of realized what was going on here, as far as testing my abilities and seeing what it was that I was capable of doing, but never for a minute was it about, being on a fringe of spirituality at all. And I'm not opposed to tarot reading, especially if someone is actually interested in finding out the truth. Because when you had somebody lie to you from the moment you were born to up to your after a bazillion years, and it's hard. You know what? The trust thing. I'm right now. I'm in a position where my trust is not for sale. It has to be earned. Finally, I get it. I was raised to believe that, oh, the Christian thing to do is just forgive and forget, but keep those people right there in your life and just let them keep doing the same thing to you over and over and over again. And at some point, you just say, oh, hell no. You will never have the opportunity to ever do that to me again. I mean it because I owe it to myself to find out every bit of the truth. I do. And now that I'm a truth seeker, it doesn't mean that I've lost my faith in God. So sometimes now, lately, I felt like, it used to be that my prayers I really felt them. But then after watching everybody commit crime against me, well, a lot of them, I was like, God, okay, God, where are you? And then people say, oh, well, you were protected the whole time. No, I wasn't. You cannot make somebody a target by putting money on their head and having everybody attack them and break their heart to get people that they love or fell in love or fell for to come after your kids and to start relationships with them, or to go to your friends or your cousins and get everybody you cared for to go and hook up with people that are in your family so they could destroy you. Oh, they plan to just devastating me. Oh, let's make a baby Treva with your daughter. That will really hurt you. Just and what about then who gave somebody HIV? Did you give my one of my kids that? And you want me just to be like, oh, that's no big deal. I could just forgive you. Just come on in and shit on me some more. You know, I am like up to here, fed up with this warring between religion and spiritualists, especially the ones that are dedicated to telling the truth, the ones that really do want the truth. And sure, sometimes along the way, we're going to get disappointed when somebody that we have liked has to pay some consequences that they don't want to pay because they're who they are, and they don't have to face any consequences because they're who they are. And then what happens is if there's people that are above the law that don't have to face that law, and have the arrogance to think that they can do whatever they want to you and me, they're gonna do it again. And every time they get away with anything, it gives them more confidence to continue over and over again. You know, if you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, society. But some of these people, especially like in politics, they loathe each other. Some of them really do loathe each other. But it's hard for me to pick a team, right now without all of the evidence because, like I said, I was put on CCTV without signing a contract, people watching me in privacy, people I know that could see me being robbed by my family, having my friends in the church attack me, begging, like begging the administration to help me. But to make somebody a target by putting money on their head so that a bunch of people would want to go after them, knock themselves out like it was a game, like it was just a Dungeons and Dragon game. Let's make it like Hunger Games, a survival game. And who's going to win the loot at the end because Elon or somebody gave them $1 million bounty to go after that person. Does that sound like something you did? Did somebody give you $1 million promise to come after me? Did they? If they did, you need to tell the truth. It's as simple as that, because even if you don't tell the truth, they're going to tell the truth for you eventually. Now, because of spiritualists and our gifts and things that we have, you know, pretty soon you've got enough evidence where even the Christians cannot argue with the tarot readers anymore. They're going to have to, buck up and be honest. Christians, praise the Lord. You got to be honest. You can't go after the tarot readers because they're telling the truth. And then you pretending over here like you're with God and you have faith and praise the Lord and that He is true. He is true. Oh, He is so true, in fact, that one way or the other, the truth always will come out. Okay? So you can pretend like you believe in God, but if you are bearing false witness, and because you hate the tarot readers so much, and I do say hate, because this was a hate crime. So if you're going after spiritualists so damn hard, just to prove that your God is real, then you have lost the point. Because you don't go after anyone. You don't know by doing that what you're getting yourself into. And instead of proving that God is real in a more equitable, fair way, you've only shown the light on yourselves that you are condemning others for what you're doing yourself. You flipped it to where now the readers that are telling the truth are better off than the Christians that were trying to throw them under the bus. Do you hear what I'm saying? So, you're going to have to hear this, because you know what I'm telling you right now, it better burn your feet. It better burn your heart to realize that if another person believes in a different way than you do, you cannot take that in a court of law. You cannot. No, it is unconstitutional and it is a federal crime. You can't use religion in court. Nope. No. And so they wanted to get a lot of evidence against me, if they, get some prostitutes from Los Angeles and they paste my face on, some porn stuff and put me on the dark web, they can go in there and say, oh, well, she's a terrible person, we can't trust her. And so somebody that's going to, not be the wise is going to say, well, we're going to trust the religious people over than this person that was on this doing this porn stuff. And, and certainly they could have, kind of been, confused for a moment, but I bet you they weren't. You know why? Because important people were doing it. And so it was going to get slid under the rug, because we want to tell the public that Christians are good, readers are bad. It's a spiritual war. And we want to make sure that when we come into this presidency, which Trump is not a Christian, he's really not, but they came in with this idea, and I can understand why. Okay, let me tell you why. And it's important. I think it's a good reason. I understand the reason. There's a lot of people out there on the fringe that are doing a lot of really corrupt things. They are. And they need God. They need to have God in their life. They need to pray. They really do. I understand it, that people are getting on the fringe and doing crazy things, trying to skirt around the law. And I believe in the things like, if you are born a boy, you are a boy. It doesn't matter how many surgeries you have. If you were born a boy or a girl, you were a boy or a girl. I mean, come on. So there's certain things that you can't get around, right? And the more they get on the fringe, the more of a problem it would be. And so you've got, parents that really want to raise their kids in a safe environment. So I can understand why they might want to bring in a Christian model so that people start getting back on track and being honest. But you're never going to do that by going after maliciously, being a religious group, going after somebody that does not exactly believe what you believe. It's unconstitutional. You can't do it. You can't. There, and when we are spreading faith to people to believe in God, it has to come from the heart. You can't force or push, and by making, a religion so staunch. Oh, anytime you make a religion staunch, whether it be Christians or whatever the faith, whether LDS, whatever, the stricter you make it, the more likely nobody's going to really take it that seriously, because they're like living in a box. And everything that they do is going to be a problem. Oh, especially if you've got somebody that you're mad at and you want to take them to court. Oh, you're going to be looking for anything that's wrong with them, anything, so that you can come in any way to make a little thing really big. This is dangerous, especially to have a justice system to completely go along with false evidence, holding up payment over and over and over again, year after year after year. Hopefully you'll die by now so that we can just, kind of move on and not worry about ever having to pay you, Treva. I know what you're doing. And so, what I am suggesting, literally, powerfully, is integrity, no matter how you believe. Whether you're a tarot reader, whether you're a spiritualist. Leave them alone, okay? They don't believe the same way that you do. Now, if they're out there spreading lies, doing voodoo or things to try to want some, using their energetic spirit and their mouth to cast spells, whether it be from gossip or in a courtroom, which is really damning, the minute that starts happening, that is the kind of witchcraft that can really harm lives. It's very serious. It's so serious, in fact, just doing that sort of thing can cause a war. It can cause holy war by spreading these false narratives and finger pointing and you're innocent, they're bad, me good, you're bad attitude. And never once in their arrogance taking a look to see exactly who they really are deep down inside. Who are you? Who are you to go in the name of your God to go after somebody else? Some of them you don't even know just because of what they do and how they believe. This is my question. This is my problem with religion right now. Because the religious people who so desperately want me to side with them are the ones that attack the readers that are actually getting some evidence. Because that is the only thing that counts in a court of law. Ever. Okay? Evidence. Real evidence. Not conspiracy theories. Not fabrication of evidence. Not using AI, which is a big freaking problem right now with muddling up evidence. This is so important. Going out and trying to force somebody to be homeless. And really, and in my case, they had no intention of ever swinging back around to save me. No. Because I was the one that was really being gifted. They couldn't afford it. They'd already done too much damage. They had done so much crime already by the time I came on board, figuring out how deep it had gone, that the only thing they could do was to further damage me. But it didn't work. You know why? Because I believe in miracles, because I believe in a God that loves me. He cares about me. He cares about each and every one of us. And if you're not out there doing anything to hurt, harm, and destroy another person, and you're begging for law enforcement to help you to do your job, believe me, if you're the one that's crying out for help, I'm pretty sure, whatever you've done wrong is never going to be exactly the same as what the other people did. I'm not worried. I tell the truth. I'm not perfect, but I do tell the truth. And so I don't have any fear asking the police to help me, begging for that help. I'm having it drag on over and over. Oh my God. Do you know how frightening it is to know that you need police help and they don't come? And then have somebody say, oh, well, you need to know what it feels like to have to stand up on your own 2 feet. Are you kidding me? Do you realize the depth and width and length and height of the crime that was committed against me? And you want me to handle this on my own and solve all the crime for you? Don't you think I know? I gave you evidence. A lot of these tarot readers that are reading that were doing a service, everything I wrote on their comments was evidence, because I was kept from a court case. Nobody wanted me there because it would have been shut down. They would have never gotten away with anything that they did had I been there. They had to do it this way. Everybody knows that by now. By now, you'd have to know that. Well, there is nothing stupid about me. And they knew that. That's why they had to say it that I was crazy. Embellish something that really had nothing to do with me being crazy at all, but it was under extreme stress and abuse. After surgery after surgery after surgery, to only get thrown out of my brother's house because his wife got mad because I turned on a circuit breaker in their house. It was little stuff, little needling every minute, constant abuse, walking on broken glass every day, until the day, we would just want you out and just say that to me. We want you out, and just the most evil. Whew, there was no way I physically was able to come back and live in their house again. So long story short, when I went to the hospital and I was so upset, I literally couldn't imagine that somebody that I thought loved me so much would ever do such a thing. And my heart was so broken. No, it was. It was so broken. And when that doctor asked me, "Are you sure you want to go to that, you know, behavioral health hospital?" He gave me a choice. I said, "I don't have any money and I can't go back there. I can't go back to my brother's house." And I really couldn't. I mean, we're talking bursts of anger, bursts of yelling, bursts of abuse. And I had already been through so much. Steering my child to not hear me or to listen to me. I wasn't crazy. I had just gone through cancer. I had gone through a plethora of different reconstructive surgeries after breast cancer. I even took my brother to one of the doctors who said this is one of the biggest surgeries a person could even have. It's a tram flap surgery. It was huge. Everything that I had been through was huge. And to have that happen when I was just barely got a job and I was just barely on my feet, everything about it was just so morally wrong. I couldn't bring myself to going back. However, I would say that the Relief Society president, who I did talk to, she understood what had happened to me. And they did help me for quite a while, actually, from the Harriman ward. So this is not just a religious thing, okay, or like one specific religion, okay? It's not, because there are good people in that church, all right? There are. I'm not going to lie, and you know as well as I do, there are. And I'm grateful for the compassion that I did receive from the Relief Society president in that ward. Nevertheless, I feel like emotionally frozen from trauma, from constant trauma that I was deliberately put through for theft. Finding out that somebody took me out of a hospital when I was a baby and having Homeland Security do absolutely nothing. Nothing. To have this just drag out on and on and on, begging the administration to help me, begging, to no avail. Took forever, took forever, because they wanted to take it. I believe that, I know that. There's something about when you live around people that betray you, or when you've been raised in that environment, you learn to recognize the truth and you recognize a lie. You know when something's right, and sometimes you're wrong. I mean, there's a margin of being wrong, but most of the time, you just know because you've been raised by such toxicity and double standards for so long. There's just no way to deny it. And nobody, you can't go out there and pretend like you're perfect while you're attacking anyone else, even if you don't agree with the religion. You can't really stand in your own truth if you're willing to target somebody for any reason whatsoever, even if it's just a celebrity. Just because you like a person doesn't mean they're innocent. You don't know, and none of us really even know them, actually. We like who we think they are. They put on these little videos and these little things to sway us into believing that there's somebody that they're really not. There's more to it than what meets the eye. And I learned that too. All of us has trusted people that we thought were good, that we really believed in. And I think that, going forward, I guess the best thing that we could actually do to protect ourselves is to really vet a person. Take the time to understand what's going on around us, to not agree to anything unless we get cold hard facts. This has gotten to the point where it isn't enough to have blind faith. It's not. Because each person, you don't know what they're capable of. You don't know where they came from. You don't know what they've been through. You don't know what their psyche is like. And they could be saying, praise the Lord all day long. And you don't even know who they really even are. And so until I actually know, I'm not going to extend my blind faith ever again. No, until I get the facts. Finally, finally, I'm making headway. Finally, people are seeing what's going on around me. And, I wish for the best. I hope for the best. But I am a realist too, because safety first. Yep, safety first, safety first. Discernment, really listening, watching behavior. And someone said, and I believe that was a long time ago too, when I first heard, if somebody shows you who they are, believe them. Believe them. That's how I'm going to believe them. Women, we tend to forgive over and over and over again. And we're the one that gets hurt all the time, and we wonder why, because we forgive over and over and over again. Be safe out there. Be careful. Because everybody seems to be wearing a mask and competing, constantly competing. Instead of worrying about who's, they've blocked my channel. They don't want to make sure I don't get any views or any, they don't want anybody to hear me. Somebody might like her and listen to her. And so which is really, all they have to do is a good job on their own channel. It's not going to affect their numbers. I don't know why they're worried about me. Just take care. Good luck. One thing I can say is prayer has saved me so, so many times. And listening to my ancestors, or, you know, be prayerful. No matter what your lifestyle is, no matter what you believe in, I hope you'll be prayerful. Pray to God the way you understand Him. Because I do believe, and I think a lot of us do believe, and we know it, that there is a power greater than ourselves. And we need to trust that. And if we're asking Him for the right things, to have a clear and prudent mind, to help us stay out of danger, and to be thoughtful and considerate, it would go a lot farther than attacking people and pretending like you're a hot shot. That's never gonna fly. Humility is not humiliation. It's recognizing that you're not God. You're not the the God of the universe. You might be in charge, but you have to be intuitive and to have some compassion. Thanks for listening. Have a great evening.